right, guys, and welcome to our first podcast on Unbound Adventures to Hunt, where we talk about hunting gear, fishing equipment, and just some good old hunting stories. And today, I have a good hunting story for you that I read in Outdoor Life, actually here right in Ohio. Logan Urban, he tags a monster 30-point buck from the ground. He said Urban, he spent all summer patterning the giant buck, getting everything together, and when the conditions lined up in early October, he knew just where to be. He said for the past several seasons in northern Ohio, a few in the know deer hunters have been aware of a colossal buck in the area. Logan Urban, an 18-year-old who lives in Vermillion, Ohio, first heard about the buck 2 years ago. Last winter, he said he found one of his massive sheds. I'd like to see that. He said, I never saw him last year, Urban tells Outdoor Life, but I located him this summer and watched him almost daily until the opening of archery season. He said, I finally got photos of him in September. He said he was very smart. Said he lived far from roads, way back on some private property. Urban says that every evening, just like clockwork, he could find the deer feeding in a large bean field. He said there were no trees along the field's edge that he could use to hang a stand in. So Urban decided to hunt the buck from the ground with the crossbow instead of his usual Matthews compound bow, which I have a Matthews compound and I love it. Just wanted to put that out there. Got good taste. So he said instead of setting up a blind, Urban brushed in a spot at the corner of a block of timber and sat directly on the ground. Urban said he went to his usual spot on October 4th and watched the buck enter the beans near the corner of the field. He said the conditions the next day were perfect for him to make his move. He said that afternoon he sat on the ground with his crossbow and waited for the deer near the field corner. He said he stepped out of a ditch into the bean field about 6 p.m. from 300 yards away. He said, I knew it was him immediately and watched him slowly move around the field feeding. He said he eventually headed my way. He said it took about an hour for the buck to get within range. He said I started shaking as the deer approached. He said, but when the buck got to 30 yards and turned broadside, he said, I aimed and made the shot with my crossbow. He said it was perfect, going right behind his shoulder, passing through both lungs. He said I watched him run about 65 yards, then he cartwheeled and fell. Somehow, he got up and ran again before falling for good for another 20 yards in the field. Urban said he called his dad to tell him the good news and to ask for help getting the heavy buck out of the field. He said my mom and dad were headed out for dinner, but he came right away to help me, Urban says with a chuckle. My mom was a little upset when they came to the bean field instead of a restaurant, but he said it all worked out okay. He said they were able to drive the truck close to the deer and load it. The buck weighed 215 pounds dress and has a tremendous 30-point rack. The huge brow tines resemble a man's open hand, with points jutting out like fingers. Wow, could you imagine that? Freaking wow. Uh, he said the non-typical antlers were scored by Toby Hughes from Buckmasters of Ohio, who recorded a video with Logan about his buck. He said Hughes scored the deer at 260 and 6/8 inches using the BTR system, and he says it's likely the biggest buck taken so far this year in Ohio. He said, I think we'll put them out in my grandfather Larry's shop, Bad Boy Bait, Tackle, and Archery in Vermilion, Ohio. He says that way anyone who wants to see the great buck can. Man, that is an awesome story. I couldn't even imagine. You guys should see the picture of this. I'm gonna put it up. Uh, I couldn't even imagine something that big. I mean, coming at me. I would be shaking. I probably couldn't even shoot it. But yeah, good job on that. That was awesome. But all right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to this story, and I will get some better podcasts going here soon. I just wanted to go ahead and throw one up with the way work's been and everything, and people's schedules getting tossed around. We'll get some episodes going up. But and again, so thanks for listening and watching to Unbound Adventures, the Hunt podcast.